Hi, everybody.
We're back again. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has. No, it's been a minute and 30 seconds.
Yes, and we're here at Cup of Joe.
COJ.
And we're up in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, and we don't have our mugs, but we have our coffee.
Yes, we do. From
and that's
COJ.
what matters.
That's right.
Here's to you,
That's
my
right.
friend.
Ching ching. There you go.
So I'm Nancy Nelson. I am a published award-winning author. I am a life coach. I am a singer. I am a grandma. I'm a lot of stuff. But here's my book, Lessons from the Ledge, a little book about big stuff. It's a memoir that I wrote that covers a length of, it covers a lot of stuff, but it covers a period of about 2009 to 2012. Back in 2009, it's just been 12 years anniversary. My husband, who I'd asked for a divorce, disappeared. And it was 5 months later to the day that they found that he had killed himself about a mile from our house. So my book is about what lessons I learned during that time about grieving, about moving forward, about overcoming obstacles. We all have stories and they're all very important. And with that, I will turn it over to...
Swing over to me. Hi, everybody. Diane Iser here. I am the owner of New Day Aging, and this is my company where I am a senior and patient advocate. And today, we are going to explore some topics as they relate to aging. So Nancy and I have discussed this. She actually put out, what did you do you put something out there?
I put a question out on Facebook. And also there's not just my page, but there's also a help thing. I don't know. I'm never on social media anymore, but asking folks what their greatest concerns were, what their challenges were, what wisdom they could impart about taking care of ourselves as we age and our aging parents or loved ones.
Big topic of conversation right now.
And so a lot of what we're going to address today are the wonderful things that these folks sent to us. They've been waiting patiently for us to address these because I think there are a lot of us out there that are now in this boat, and it's very complicated further by everything going on in the world. So hopefully we'll be able to address some things, give some information out, and reward everybody for being so darn patient.
That's right. Thank you. We both appreciate it. So first I want to give you my background, my credentials, so as we start to explore these, there's going to be four questions, four areas that seem to come up most with what Nancy was finding online. But first and foremost, I'm very impassioned about the topic of aging. I went to school, graduated in 2008, got my bachelor's at Northern Illinois University, go Huskies. With my minor in gerontology, and I immediately got out into the industry shortly thereafter. I've done a multitude of different things within the industry. My background includes federal and state benefits advocacy, legislative advocacy as it pertains to aging. I also have worked in continuing care retirement communities, assisted living, memory care. My cross section is huge. My area of expertise is more in the psychosocial realm of aging, where I really impassioned to change the way that we view aging in this country by respecting those that come before us. And I think that a lot of times, and I've seen this through the socialization of different aging cohorts. So people don't genuinely understand that when they have it, let's say it's your mother, Nancy, okay, we'll use your mom. Let's say it's your mother. We are adult children, and we have parents who are aging, and our top concern is always their well-being, as it should be. For most people it is. That care. There's a lot of people that actually don't, that would prefer that their parents be living in some facility, they've done their, I've done what I can, they're over there. But for those of us that care, where there tends to seem to be some level of discord is understanding the role of what you as an aging adult child play and the part of your parents aging. And one of the areas that I'd like to start with is an area pertaining to money, interestingly enough, as we went through this. And the question was costs related to senior living. Will I outlive my money? And that is a hot topic. It's a hot topic not just for the aging cohorts that are older. I'm a boomer, not just for myself, but also for those that are before me. And one of the things that I've always done professionally is I always pay attention to the current trends of older adults that are older than myself. If you want a crystal clear vision of what your older age will look like, and a lot of you will argue this with me, but I want you to think about it. If you look at what's going on with older adults today, that is what will be going on when you become older. And now you might be looking saying, oh my God, I don't like what I see right now, especially in the last year and a half with the pandemic, right? We've got a lot of people that are the oldest of old, which is 85 and older, locked up, locked down. They can't have access to their loved ones. Now, if you're looking at that in horror, you should be. Because there is no data that supports that when you magically get to be 85, that because the generation before you is gone, so in that reference, I'm speaking right now of the current cohort, which would be the silent generation, that once they're gone, that will make it, they'll make it easier for the generation, the cohorts behind. No, that's wishful thinking. It's been seen time and time again. I've seen it since I've been in the industry, where I understand what my older age will be like at 85. The only way this changes is if we make those changes today and we make them currently with that age group. So in relationship to that question, will you outlive your money? And as a seniors advocate who has a good background in federal and state benefits, and just using common sense rationale, I can tell you, you will outlive your money. Right now, we currently are watching a shift where the median age is rising. It has consistently rose. I don't have my stats in front of me, but I believe the median age to live has gone up to like 76. I'm just throwing that out there. I could be off by a year or two. So what that means is it's highly likely, if you're 65 today, that you're going to see 85 and beyond. One of the things that I have learned in my journey professionally in the field of aging is the decade of your 60s. It's really kind of interesting. If you make it through the decade of your 60s without being taken out by any catastrophic illness, your survival and your ability to live longer actually increases, which I think is that's very hopeful. If you can make it to 70, right, and nothing took you out,
you're gonna go forever, man.
You're gonna go forever.
Bunny.
And here's another statistic. Interestingly enough, if you make it to 85 and older, your ability to hit the double O's, as I call it, 100, also increases.
My mom's 90.
Okay, so she, at this juncture, actually could live longer because it seems to be that midsection that gets you. So keeping that tied into what that question is. So if you're going to outlive your money, what provisions, what are you doing right now? What are you doing about that? And I will be honest with you, most people aren't doing anything.
Well, and my question would be, are you even going to know you've outlived your money by the time you're that old?
Well,
because usually there's some definite compromising in the faculties and everything else.
And not always, so here's the criteria.
Right.
If you make it to 85, and there's a lot of people, my parents are in their 80s right now, and they're doing very well. Chronological age does not negate, to bring your point into play here, does not negate that we hit a chronological age and all of a sudden we lose cognition. Yes, is there decline present at all times as we age? Yes, there is. But we're aging better. Each cohort's aging better. Each generation within a cohort is aging better. So what you're seeing right now is, I want you to, prime example for those of you that would understand this, in the 1970s there was a show called All in the Family. Archie Bunker, played by Carol O'Connor, was basically about a 50-year-old man. I want you to see the difference. If you go back and look at Archie Bunker at 50 now come over here and look at J-Lo, look at Madonna, who I know is over 50. Start looking at famous.
Look at me.
Look at famous people, and look at both of us. We're over 50. If you
Right.
start to look at what 50 represented in the 40, almost 50 years ago,
Yeah.
and what 50 is
He
today.
spent a lot of time in his recliner,
Yes,
all
you'll
kind of
see
thing, and,
definitive differences that do promote the fact that we're aging better. One of the biggest concerns I have is that because we are aging better and living longer, we are presently in society that does not know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with that. So the socialization of my generation, the boomers, was brought up very proactively. It runs about a 13-year time frame, give or take a year or two, based on whoever is discussing and wherever their learning curve was. But it's about a 13-year time frame. If you look at that, within that 13-year time frame, there was socialization of the boomers that might be a little bit different from the oldest boomer to the youngest boomer. And when you bear that in mind as we get older, what you're going to see is that because of socialization, we have different expectations of what our older age is going to, what it's going to be. So the current cohort of 85 and older, the oldest of old, they were socialized. They are a Depression era, I would say Depression
My
era.
mom calls herself a Depression kid all the
era
time.
baby, is what they would refer
Right,
to,
and
a
remembers
child.
rationing from the war and
So they have a different experience right now. Their 85 and my 85 is going to be very different because of how we were socialized. So we have a country that really does not know, and right now this country is so messed up as it is, that this doesn't help us in the aging area. They don't know what to do with us as we are getting older, and unfortunately, in my industry, of which I'm not a big proponent of, we just want to pigeonhole and say, well, we're going to talk to you, Diane, at your age, the same way we would talk to perhaps Nancy's mother at 90. Now, I'm sorry, I do not agree with that approach.
Right.
Because, and again, this goes back to the fact that individuals should be treated as individuals.
right. That goes into sovereignty.
There you go,
Right?
it does.
That's a sovereignty
and it
thing
slides,
that each of us have.
and it slides right in.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, what it costs today for Nancy's mom to be able to be self-sufficient financially is going to be different for when I get to be that age. And it's a lot of it's going to be based on not just what you've done personally to prepare for that, but also it's going to be what's going on in this country. What's going on in this world, because
Right,
that
right.
directly has an impact. And that has an impact right now that people are not looking at, because most people do not want to look down the road at their older age. They go like this. Let me see, I'm working, I've got a 401k, right? I'm saving, I'm investing, I'm doing all the things I can do if I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. First of all, not everybody is. And I should be okay down the road, but what you need to be looking at is you could put all the right provisions in place and you could end up where we're at today. And in case, I'm sure a lot of you are paying attention, but there's a lot of people who are not. Whatever is going on right now in this country with respect to the pandemic, with respect to the economy, with respect to whoever's running this country, is going to have a huge impact on how you age and whether or not you will outlive your money. And the scary part is, and I'm just going to, go ahead.
I have a thought. Oh my God, it's like in there.
Go with it.
One of the things that also is coming up for me is, what is your relationship with money? Mm-hmm. For my mom at 90, living on her own still, mm-hmm. growing up, Depression era kid, and even a lot of the baby boomer generation, that the mark of success was work and save and retire, and there's your nest egg, right? So there's a value of money that's a certain thing. And then you get to the end of the baby boomers and generations below that, who may have a very different relationship with money, a different tact in the way that they invest, look at it. Is it a living, breathing thing? Is it something that sits in a bank? How do we feel about banks? How do we feel about these other things? Are investments different now? I think in our parents' time, they invested in a lot of typical like blue chip, big company and stock kind of stuff, and maybe we have a different view of that now, and things are changing in what we all are starting to know and realize. So that has a big play in it. And I know for me, I have two brothers so the three of us help with my mom. My dad passed away in 2004. I have a brother who is definitely right in the middle of the boomers. Another brother who's 2 years behind him, and then I'm at the very, very tail end of the boomer thing. And so not only is there a difference in the way that we look at what's important for caring for our mom and communicating with each other, we do that differently. Mm-hmm. And that goes into that whole sibling thing too, as you're trying to put together a way of a plan, if you will, to care for those people that we love with all our hearts, our parents in this, and coming at it from different places based on our own experience, and then on top of that, kind of that cultural thing.
And also, the fact of the matter is, men are managerial in their style of how they provide care for their parents, and women are predominantly hands-on. And that is systematically across the board. You'll see it. I've seen it all the time. Managerial, men will come at a situation with an aging parent when they contact me, and especially when I was working in a CCRC, continuing care retirement community in independent living, and they wanted the fix to be, well, she's got money. My mother's got money. So let's throw whatever we need to throw at her. Let's get a caregiver in to take care of her. They want to manage.
Let's use her money the very best we can.
Yes, they want to manage the care, whereas women tend to come in and will sit down and say to me, I'm really concerned about my mom's well-being. I would like to actually be responsible for coming in so many days a week to be with my mom. So Nancy's point is well taken, which is we're all coming at it from different avenues, but there is a consistency, and it's a gender consistency. So men are managerial, women are hands-on. But to that
can be a really good thing, though, too, to have both sides of that.
Both is good.
Yeah.
Actually, I like both. I like when you've got both influences because
you get a fuller picture.
You get a fuller picture, absolutely. Now, the one thing I do want to say with respect to outliving your money. So what happens when you outlive your money, okay? And we're doing touching points today because I could do a whole show on this.
I keep trying to find the golden egg in all of the whatever, right?
Well, I'm going to be
I don't want to outlive the money.
Well, here's what happens. When you outlive your money, there is presently, and as I say this, please pay attention, there is no safety net for the middle class.
So be nice to your kids.
Okay? There is no safety net. Yes, do whatever you need to do. There is no safety net for the middle class. Now, at the rate we're going in this country, we're going to see more and more people, unfortunately, go from middle class down because of what's going on economically in this country. But that being said, while there still is a middle class, what you need to understand is this. People will say, well, Diane, that's not right because I live in Illinois, and if I know that if I ran out of money, there's plenty of programs to take care of me. No, there's not. There used to be more programs, but those programs were targeting a lower income level client. You have to qualify based on a yearly income, and I will tell you this: the federal poverty level, the number I'm going to throw out there so that you really understand it. The threshold is, I'm going to throw out about $11,000. So if you're thinking that you ran out of money and you're going to be able to have access to all of these federal or state benefits programs, they don't exist for you. They exist for you after you deplete everything you have. So that's the fallacy and I'm going to speak because I'm licensed in Illinois. So I'm going to speak directly to that. You're not qualifying for anything in Illinois when you're middle class. You have to deplete what you have in assets to get to the point where you'll be able to
take advantage of all these programs.
Limited programs. Right. So when you run out of all your money and you're in a health crisis, what's going to happen is we all go on Medicare somewhere around the age of 65. I'm just going to ballpark that. Sometimes we don't because we're still working. So the majority of people go on to Medicare. Once you lose everything you have or you outlive everything you have, the only other thing that's available to you is Medicaid. And just so that I make this clear, Medicaid is a state-based benefit program for poverty level people, whether they're over 65 or under 65. Medicare is a federal program that helps take care of your health care needs. The biggest thing you need to understand on
After
this,
a certain age.
after a certain age, thank
Okay,
you.
okay.
After a certain age.
Okay.
Now, the biggest thing you need to understand is once you deplete your assets, literally do not have an income threshold that's over $11,000, you are called dual eligible because now you have both Medicare and Medicaid. That's it. What I need to tell you is all that's taken care of is your health. So there's no interest level on the part of the federal or the state government to figure out who's going to pay your rent, to figure out who's going to pay your groceries. A lot of the programs that I'm speaking about have been cut to shreds since I went into the industry in 2010, and in the benefits area of this since 2010. Food stamps, LIHEAP, which is for your heating and your electricity in your home. All these programs have been slashed over the course of years. So what you end up having when you outlive your money is you end up having your health care costs covered. And that's it. And that's all it is. It doesn't put you into a house. It doesn't pay for your food. It doesn't pay for your utilities. I could go on further with that, but I think that's a good enough chunk of reality for you to understand that whatever you can do prior to becoming older, okay, is that save, do the things you need to do within the scope of what you're afforded, because based on your income, based on the responsibilities you have financially. But the bottom line is, once you outlive your money, there is no safety net. I don't care what you hear on the news. I don't care what colleagues of mine are going to say if they watch this. I'm telling you the realistic truth, not the fabrication of what if thinking. Well, no, of course we would never let our older adults, live without. Well, the bottom line right now is there are a lot of older adults living without, and that is my destiny and yours behind me if we don't find a way to change that in present day thinking. So that's our first question, and
That was depressing as hell.
Well, it's
true.
But here's
I'd rather know. It's like knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, and that's why I say this. What I'm saying is hard stuff. It's not easy stuff, and sometimes we can't find. Now there's a silver lining in this. The silver lining is what Nancy just said. It's what I abide by professionally and personally. Knowledge is power. So if you know this today, and maybe you didn't know this, maybe you just found that out as I've said that. If you know this today, it's going to change the way you relate to your money moving ahead. Hopefully it will. Hopefully you will start to think and say, wow, what do I do? What do I do if I find myself 99 years young and I've outlived my money? Better to think of it today than it would be to think of it for the first time at 99. Yeah. So that's our first question covered. Now,
and I don't know how many of you that have dealt with this when you do put someone into a facility because they need more care than you're able to give or comfortable giving, or they need more support than what you have available. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had hard conversations where you've sat down and crunched numbers with administrators in that, let's face it, there's no such thing as free. Right?
Right, there is no such thing.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
And comment below if you have tips that you realized in that conversation, or wisdom to share with the other viewers about what you learned while in the midst of some of those tough conversations.
Yes.
I have friends that, have their folks in long-term facilities because they do need more care, because they need a facility that offers them more than what they're qualified themselves as the children to do. And how did you go about finding the best place for that person? How did, what are some of the questions to ask as it's sort of like, how do you buy a new car? What do you ask at the dealership? What have you learned about things that you have found to be really necessary in a facility versus things that are nice to have but not necessary versus things that really, it's got a health club. How many people actually use the facility? Like,
Right.
is it worth paying for, kind of thing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right, but the sharing of information is good too.
Yeah.
So when you're out there, and I think what I've seen, especially Nancy brought to light, is the fact that people are out there searching right now. They're sharing. They want to hear other people's stories. Like, how did you pick that AL versus the other AL?
Right.
Because of your experience.
Right.
And that's also where I come in as an advocate, a seniors advocate, which is my background in being able to tour with people and show them the things to look for.
Right.
And sometimes the nicest place that you look at that looks so modern, and I'm just going to touch on this, I'm not going to elaborate, but the nicest place in the world sometimes has excuse my Italian, the shittiest care. So you want to be careful. That's something I know.
Right. You don't get carried away by all the
because
it's
got
new.
a Starbucks. It's got Starbucks in it.
Right,
so.
right, exactly.
But onto the second question. So one of the things, a predominant theme was challenges related to when do I step in with my parent? When is it the right time for me as an adult child to step in and start to make decisions for my parent? Safety is, and the second question is about safety. And that was a theme on her, that she had a lot of people come in and say, we're concerned. We're concerned about, my mother falling. We're concerned about my father driving. That type of thing.
Or mom had a stroke and needs more care now.
Right, what do we do?
Because her
what
situation
do we do?
has changed.
Right, do we bring someone into the home? Can we afford that? Do we sell her home and put her in a facility? These are the endless questions that go on, and usually people haven't made plans for it. So when it hits, it's called crisis intervention, which is something I do. That's what I do in my business, which is I come in during a crisis and try to make sense of it so that the family understands the steps that they can take within that crisis. So,
and hopefully all of this is going to help arm everyone so that we don't get to a place of crisis and we can be prepared.
Yes, and I always say this professionally. One of the biggest tools you have is have these conversations with your parents prior to the crisis hitting.
Right.
What happens is a lot of times you'll see your parents say, "But I don't want to ever have to leave my home." Okay, that's a classic. And based on what cohort they come from, that's understandable. I don't want to ever leave my home. I'm not going somewhere. Well, what ends up happening is because they won't look at that scenario at all, what ends up happening is 9 out of 10 times the very thing they don't want to have happen happens to them because of a crisis. Mm-hmm. So they fall.
Right.
And they break a hip.
Yeah.
And now they can't go back home immediately, and they are in the middle of the crisis of what they did not want to look at. Had they looked at it, they could have made provisions within that structure of looking at it. And Nancy and I both feel this way. You are always at choice, even in situations where you feel your choices are limited, and sometimes your choices are. Sometimes you don't have a lot. But I will say this, you are always, always at choice. Even in the worst case scenario, how you choose to look at what's going on in the crisis is a choice.
And this is to help us be as educated as possible to make the best choices in that situation.
Right. Now, that brings up another point.
And that can be as easy as a conversation of, hey, Mom, when you picture like your golden years, this chapter of your life, how do you see yourself?
Right.
And that'll give you a lot of insight.
That's a nice
instead of like, hey,
question.
Mom, did you ever think you should go in a home? You know what I mean?
And that I will tell you, I will tell you flat out that approach, and this is what I'm going to give you from where I'm sitting. I firmly believe professionally and personally in this approach. When it comes to safety, safety is first. And as long as your parent is cognitively there, okay, so they're not dealing with any dementia-related issues, and they are safe, here's where a lot of people will argue with me because it's a hard nut to crack. You do not have the right as an adult child to come in and start to tell your parent how to live their older age. Now, a lot of people are going to listen and hear what I say, and they're going to get mad. And they're going to say, well, I can't have my mother falling, and I can't have my father wandering. Well, here's the bottom line. Under those circumstances, what I just described is, there seems to be a cognition problem. Whenever safety is compromised, absolutely beyond a shadow of a doubt, someone needs to step in. But a lot of times you will have parents who are aging, they're aging very well, and their cognitive issues they have none. They're doing just fine. Maybe they're slowing down, but they're there. They're cognitively there. Now, the problem that most of us have as adult children is that we seem to think we know what's best for them. And I'm going to say this because all of us are going to go through this that have had children. Your parents have been taking care of themselves all of their lives. And they deserve to continue to live whatever lifestyle, even if we don't approve of it. And we might look at them and say, oh my God, I don't like the way you're living. You could be living this way. You could be living better. So long as they're safe, and I use the word safe. So they're living in their home. Maybe their home isn't as clean as it used to be, and maybe you want to go in there and clean it. Maybe you want to hire a cleaning person. But if your parents look at you and say, no, I'd rather not, here's the really tough part. It's your responsibility to respect that. It's your responsibility to allow them to age, because my mom brought something to my attention many years ago which made a lot of sense to me. So we've evolved and we keep getting better at trying to take care of older adults, right? That's what our ultimate goal is. But she said, you know, Diane, she said, in my time frame when I was young and I watched the older people die around me, she said they lived, she said, and they were in their house and maybe they tripped and fell and that was the end of them. She said, but they died on their own terms. And there's some great truth to this.
Right.
I don't want to see my parents trip and fall. I don't want to see my parents get hurt. But at what point is it not my right to step in and start to dictate terms and conditions on how they live? What this boils down to for me is when I'm 85 and I'm not cognitively impaired, I do not want my daughter or my son coming and telling me that it's time for me to do things differently. Now, if they come to me and say, I'm concerned, Mom, about what happens when you aren't functioning real well. You want to have the conversation, the dialogue? Great. Well, I'll have the dialogue. But when it comes to me making decisions when I'm 85 and I'm safe and I'm cognitively not impaired, this is where we have gone in society right now, which I think is really compromising the relationships between parents and their older adult children. We do not have the right to tell our parents what they should be doing or how they should be living so long as they're safe. And a lot of you out there are going to shake their head at me and they're going to go, well, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous because I know. Well, what do you know? What do you know? They are your parents. They're deserving of your respect. They're deserving to live and progress in their aging the way that they choose, so long as their operative word always here is safe. I'm not denying that. And yes, they might be making choices that you all of a sudden think would be easier if they did what you wanted them to do. Absolutely correct. Is it going to be an inconvenience to you if you have to get up and go take care of something because something happened? You better believe it's going to be an inconvenience. Yeah. And you can have the dialogue. But what we're forgetting, and I've seen my colleagues do this too, I've seen fabulous colleagues in the time frame I've been in the industry that use great respect, and when they do have dialogues and conversations with older adults, they're mindful of that respect. But at the same time, I've also seen colleagues who have talked down to older adults like they're kindergartners, and I've seen them in pretty high up positions too, which disgusts me. It disgusts me, and I don't care, who's listening to this that might not like that. But it disgusts me because everyone is deserving of respect. You just don't lose your respect because you turned 85 and all of a sudden society says, well, we don't have any use for you, because in this country, whether you like it or not, ageism is alive and well. Ageism is negative stereotyping of aging. We judge people in this country based on chronological age. You need to know that. You need to hear that today. You one day will be a victim of that if you don't figure out prior to getting older, how you're going to deal with that ageism.
Couple things are coming up for me on this.
Go for it.
It boils down to dignity.
Yes.
What is
Dignity.
You know, I relate to this in caring for my mom, and my attitude is I want to live my life. First of all, I'm not afraid of death. And I think we're dealing with a generation of people in general who have dealt with the Depression, who have dealt with wars, who have dealt with whatever. They have a very different, when you get to be an older adult, I think you can have a different thought process around death. Mm-hmm. Maybe some people become more fearful, some people become less fearful. My mom's attitude has been, I've lived this wonderful full life, why am I still here? If things happen, they happen, and that's the way that it goes. And
a lot of people
and then my
90s.
time is up, and they lived a wonderful full life, and whatever. We have to make sure that we as individuals, as these adult children, have done our own personal work to make sure that we're not projecting our fear, our issues.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Onto our parents,
Absolutely correct.
I had somebody say, my mom is 90. She lives on her own in her home. Now, we have addressed this. There are, between my brother who's local and myself, there are more visits, more phone calls, more following up, more caring for as time has gone on. And to me, I feel that it's a privilege. And if the situation were reversed, I know my mom would be there for me. So there's blessings, there's blessings in that servitude, if you will. I want this to change, or we got to be careful about this. And I guess my attitude is more of, okay, because she's 90 years old. How long do you think we have here? The way that life works is you go up and you go down, and none of us get out alive. So if we have a huge fear around safety and death and all of these things, there's a really good chance that what we're doing is we're taking a lot of our own stuff and we're projecting it onto our parents, rather than actually seeing and hearing our parents for who they really are and what they're really saying.
Right.
And that's why I say, if you ask those questions of how do you picture your life, or what are you most proud of? What are some of the things that are challenging to you now?
And be inclusive of your parents. I think one of the biggest self-discovery moments for me professionally was doing mediation. I've done mediation before. I love mediation, actually, because I learned a tremendous amount about that inner dynamic of how people are relating to their parents. So one time I had a mediation with 4 adult siblings and their mother. And interestingly enough, in the dynamic of that mediation, what I first saw was the certain siblings were talking about their mother like she wasn't in the room.
When she was
sitting right there. And I kept going back and saying to the mother, I'm just going to use a fictitious name, Sally, what do you think? Because, and Nancy hit it, which is we all are bringing something different to the table. And if we haven't done our own work with reference to how we feel about grief and loss and aging and fear and death, we're bringing that to the table in a crisis or in a mediation session. Right. And that's where I always try to steer people back to the fact in mediation that if your mother or father is present, a lot of the discussion should include them, not be like they're they're there observing.
It's like a school conference with your kids sitting there,
right?
And the teacher's talking about.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden they were your parent for how many years of your life, and now you're actually.
And then the roles reverse. Yeah.
And as far as the roles reverse thing, that doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Right.
And I think that we have been socialized in recent decades to believe that is what goes on. Not necessarily. I don't feel a need to baby my parents. Right. I treat my parents with great respect because I basically know that they're aging well. I'm proud of them. If they need my help, by all means, I'm ready to jump right in. I also have siblings that are going to relate to my parents maybe similarly to me, maybe differently.
Right.
So out of respect,
What you said was really, when they ask, if they ask for
when they
your
ask
help,
for my help,
then you're willing to
it doesn't
get it.
mean because I don't offer it that I don't care. For me, what it means is I'm very self-aware of the fact that because what I do for a living, that I want my parents to understand that I'm not stepping in to treat them like they're not my children.
Well,
or
and
my
how many
child.
times do we give people advice and they're like, I didn't ask you.
Exactly.
And because we go, well, why didn't you take my advice? Because I didn't ask
I
you.
didn't ask you for it.
You know?
So I mean, that's something.
Right.
That's something to keep in mind.
And the thing too that's so hard and so messy about this is because of the relationships and the love and the history that's
Yes.
there. And all of us have the best of intentions of
Yes.
wanting to care the
Right.
best that we can for these people that are so precious to us. And
Absolutely.
the frustrating thing is, it's like you can't to wrap your arms around it and kind of package it up in such a way. When there's grief in that. My mom's getting older.
And
I
she's-
can't have the same conversations
and
with
she's
her.
having more and more loss in her life.
Right.
And the losses is sometimes it's small losses. It's a loss of having those conversations that
Right.
you used to have.
Right. It's just like an active
Losing
grieving.
your driver's license.
It's an
another
active,
loss.
it's an active grieving on our parts as well,
Right.
as we see our
Losing your
parents
parent.
aging, and
Right.
they can't get around maybe as well as they did, or they don't drive anymore, or I can't lean on my mom the same way maybe I did when I was in the midst of my own personal crisis,
Right.
because she's just not.
She's not maybe-
there anymore.
Right.
for
She's
that.
not capable.
So there's a grief that's involved in that, and yet there's just this undying love as well, and that's why if your intention is to do the best by them that you can, what does every parent want for their child? Every single parent that I have ever heard speak about anything or whatever, you have a child, you want them to be the very, very best that they can be.
That you want them to flourish.
And so the more that we can be our best and bring our best to that situation, the better the decisions that we make are going
Yes.
to be, the more collaborative they're going to be, the less misunderstanding, the less regret we will have at the inevitable end of time when our parent dies, because they are going to pass
Right.
away. That's what happens. We're going to pass away.
Right.
That's what happens.
And on that note right there, I have to add this in, because tying this question together, it's going to be about learning what we have control over and what we don't. And one of the classic things I hear people say, clients say to me is, but I have to do something so that mom is safe. And this is what I will
have
say.
to keep
I have to,
safe,
what
yeah.
if my mom falls? And I'll go back to this mediation session. What if my mom falls? So what I say to that usually is this. That individual right there is bringing their fear of that into this dynamic. And what I will say is, we can put all the structures we want there. And I will say, well, okay, then we'll go in, we'll go into the house, we'll put bars in the bathroom, we'll do all these things. But I always remind people of this. We can put all the structures in place to make sure that a person doesn't fall. But here's what you have to learn with respect to aging. You cannot control every outcome of your parent. So you could have all these structures in place. You could have done everything you could. You could have moved them out of their home, put them into an assisted living facility.
People fall there.
People fall there. The bottom line is
Shit
this.
happens.
You have to remember, as Nancy said, shit does happen. But here's the thing that I want you to be aware of, especially in this day and age right now, because of what's gone on in this country. This directly ties into this pandemic era that we're living in. People are looking in this pandemic era for absolutes, meaning that if I follow this certain protocol and I get you to follow a certain protocol, that I'm assured that I'm never going to get that horrible virus, right? No, that isn't how life works. There are no guarantees. The best we can do is try to do our very best and understand and respect the lack of control that we have. And the reason I bring this up is because this is going to influence you as your parent is aging. what you're bringing to the table, as Nancy said. And right now we have a country that's basically trying to convince people that they have a lot more control over if they get sick or not with one particular virus. And we haven't discussed the fact there's a lot of other illnesses that are still out there in life that we have no say over.
Right.
And the same thing applies to your aging adult parent. Right. There is only so far you can go, and it doesn't mean because your parent fell that you didn't do the right thing. It means respecting the fact that we all are going to decline in aging, but it's what we do with the decline that matters most of all. That's where I differ.
Of risks, no matter what.
Absolutely.
I know people who've lost aging parents at a very, very well-known, very nursing facility.
I've got
I mean, it's the same thing as your kids, right? You put your kids on the bus, they go off to school.
Right.
You pray.
That's right.
You hope their bus doesn't get in an accident, and that kids are nice to them, and that they'll learn good stuff, and that they're comfortable, and their bellies are full. But
so as you let go of your kids, so too do you also let go of your parents as they get older. And if you can hang on to that dynamic in your head and give the dignity to them that Nancy is talking about, which is working with them, not trying to be the overseer of them. The end result is when they're gone one day, you have no regrets because you had quality time with them and you respected the fact that they choose to live and go into their older age the way they do.
It's the difference between being their partner and being their handler.
Absolutely correct on that one. Absolutely correct. Now, that's going to lead into the third area.
And again, thank you guys so much for giving the questions and sharing your experiences. I was very touched by that and the fact that you would trust me with that that information, and it was very, very, very obvious to me that everybody is trying so very hard to do their very best to care for these people that own their hearts.
Right, and off that, the third area, which isn't a question, and it's something I say all the time, and I'm looking at my notes, is respite care. So what is respite care? Okay, respite care is, we're talking about this caregiving aspect, right? We've got parents, we've got aunts and uncles, sometimes women, and this particularly pertains to women as hands-on caregiver.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, chime in.
Respite care is important even if your parents are in a fully what's the word I'm looking for? Full care home facility.
Right, they're not living at home. They're not
no
living
matter what, whether they're living in your home, they're in their own home and you're caring for them there, whether they're in a facility, this applies to all of us who are dealing with aging parents.
Right, it applies to people that are dealing with aging parents, it applies to people dealing with handicapped kids, whatever it is. Right. Respite care is important. And respite care is important because of this. I think I've seen clients do this. I've seen clients, in particular women, that will have, let's say there's 3 sisters. And there's one sister in particular that seems to always end up with the hands-on caregiving. Maybe it's because the other 2 sisters live out of state. They could live in the same state. Doesn't really matter. But one of the 3 is the one that's always running mom to the doctor's office, always trying to make sure she's got care in the home if she has to coordinate home health services, that type of thing. What I tend to see is that one individual, and I'm using the 3 sister scenario because I've had this happen, that one unique individual is so understandably and caringly caught up in doing what was best for her parent that she overdoes it. She says, well, I've got to be the selfless individual. I've got to put my mother's needs first. Well, here's another.
She's taking ownership.
She's taking ownership of something that is going to ultimately cause a decline in her own health, psychologically or physically, because we are not superheroes. We are human beings. And in order for us to give our very best to the people that we care for, requires us to take care of ourselves first. Now that also is in direct conflict of the message going on in the last year and a half in this country. And I bring this in because socialization is changing. So when you're looking at someone else and you're saying, I have to be this, person that gives, right? I've got to give everything before, I have to put my needs aside. I guarantee you that you will crash and burn. And when you crash and burn, you won't be available to that parent that you have given so selflessly to. Also, what I've seen happen is, in that scenario of the three sisters, what a lot of times what happens is I will hear, well, if my two other sisters would just do more. One of the biggest problem areas I've ever seen is because the sister doing the most won't take the time for respite care, won't take, or will say, I can't find time. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Even if you have to boil it down to 5 minutes, even if it's a cup of coffee, walking out of the room, if you're with your mother, to sit down and have a cup of coffee, take 5 minutes, that's how we build. But what I notice in particular that runs all the time is the other two sisters will chime in and say, but I've offered. Right. And here's what happens. The sister that won't allow the control to be wholly hers won't accept the help because she wants to control the help. Right. So what you're
not going to do it right, so
you're not going to do it right, so I'm going to do it. Well, what that means is you're not going to do it the way I want you to do it. Right. So therefore, what she's doing is the sister that's in charge is cutting off her nose to spite herself. So she's wearing herself down to a frazzle. She's discounting the help because it isn't what she wants the help to be. And in the end, if she's not available for her mother because she burns out and gets sick or can't function, not to mention the fact she probably has her own family, okay, then what good is she at that point to the parent that she's so selflessly given to?
Some people really dig the martyr complex.
And that's a big component. All due respect. I'm not belittling or badgering a person that's approaches, it can only be done my way because I'm so frightened.
The intention is good. The intention is I care for I want the very best.
It's doing a healthy way. It's a healthy way to do it.
Right. And that takes self-awareness.
It takes self-awareness and it takes the willingness.
What are you distracting yourself from? Are you potentially distracting yourself? What are you afraid of? All those questions that we ask in all of these videos that we do. Right. Because this is just a microcosm of that. Right. This is another relationship that you have. Right?
And respite care, so you know, is as important as what you are doing to support your parent. So if you're not taking care of yourself first, you are not going to be able to continue to take care of your parent if your parent is looking to you for that help.
What do they say on planes? Put your mask on first.
There, bingo.
Before you help everybody else put their masks on.
Absolutely. Put your oxygen mask on first. Yep. Because if you're not breathing, you're not helping them. Right. And that is very, very true when it comes to respite care with older adults, is that a lot of times, a lot of people that contacted Nancy, you know, the resounding theme that I hear is they're burnt out. And they're burnt out to the point, a lot of times I get clients, they'll call me, and one of the reasons they call me, well, there's numerous reasons, but one of the reasons they call me is because they are burned out. Mm-hmm. And now they don't know what else they can be doing. They're hit with an onslaught of situations that are coming at them. And right now, more than ever in the industry, I will say this much, older adults' ability to stay in contact with their loved ones, their adult children or grandchildren, is becoming very challenging because of this pandemic and because the lack of accurate knowledge and the lack of conformity across the board on how things should be dealt with in facilities. Each facility independently coming up with their own criteria.
Well, and even that facilities
doesn't allow family members to be in touch with their loved ones. That's a whole other area. But I'm not going to get into that.
And the polarization of this or that and that kind of thing, and it divides everyone. And really, what you need at a time like this in your family is to come together, and all of you together can collectively care the best for that aging parent.
And that being said, that is, and this goes into the fourth area for us today, which is a lot of times the reason I get phone calls as an advocate is because of those challenges. I will get phone calls, I've been getting phone calls lately from people saying, my mom's in the hospital and I've got one that I'm going to talk to tonight. My mom's in the hospital since September 30th, and the hospital won't allow me access to my mother. And they don't know what to do. That's the role of, so the fourth area is, why would you contact an advocate? Why would you contact someone like me? And a lot of times people contact me out of crisis. Mm-hmm. They contact me because one minute their parent was living independently, and then health crisis hit, and the dynamic changed. And right now the dynamic is changing so much day to day because of the pandemic that people do not know what their rights are with respect to being able to gain access to their loved ones. And that is where I come in as an advocate, especially with my background, because I have a strong background in federal and state benefits. I do know the criteria. I also am someone that I support people pushing the envelope, okay? And a lot of times this is not something that a lot of my colleagues do. My function as an advocate is to impart knowledge. And if I've done my job correctly when you call me, by the time you're done with me, hiring me as a professional to assist you, hopefully I've actually advocated to a degree that you no longer need me. That's my ultimate goal.
Right.
That might sound people might say, oh my God, that shoots yourself in the foot for business.
No, you're educating people.
But I'm educating.
You're giving people something that you can't put a value on. Like you can't,
I'm teaching you
priceless.
I'm teaching you. What I'm doing is, I'm teaching you how to be your own best advocate, or you be the best advocate for your parent. So a lot of times people will pick that phone up, call me and say, I've got this challenge right now, and I really don't know where to go with it. Be it the hospital system, be it rehab, be it, I do, like I said, crisis intervention, family mediation. What I do is I act like conduit. So my biggest thing is, I would like to see continuity of communication across the board. One of the things I strive to do professionally is to get all entities to work together. And I create an atmosphere where the primary and end result is the best possible solution or outcome for my client and my client's family.
And Diane, I would say too that the greatest value that you offer families you work with is objectivity.
Yes.
The ability to not be emotionally intertwined. It's not your mom kind of thing, right?
Right.
So sometimes you need that 1,000-foot view.
Yes.
Because you're so in the trees, you're so in it, it's hard to see clearly. And you can come along and say, okay, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm seeing, here's, from a place where you're not actually in that same box with everybody.
It's objectivity from the standpoint that, I'm not emotionally involved. And that is a good thing. That's why there's people out there to do what I do for a living. We care. We bring into what we do for a living. I bring passion into it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do what I do for a very, very long time, and I truly care on a level that allowed me to go back to school as an older adult, because I wanted to have the education to support what I do for a living, then got out into the industry and made sure that I could acquire as much professional knowledge as possible to be that person that's going to help the individual or their family during a time of crisis. And we have a lot of crisis out there right now.
And it's hard to know how to navigate any of this.
It is.
Rules are changing, different places have different rules, this and that and whatever. And so what does the law say? There's a lot of fear around it. There's a lot of unknowing. And so again, that knowledge is power.
Right.
That knowledge plays into our sovereignty to be able to make those decisions be the best we can be, to make the best decisions and help and collab, if you will, with our families, our loved ones, to, at the end of the day, have no regrets.
Right. And I think the thing that bothers me right now more than anything is we are getting away from asking questions. And I'm here to tell you this. I once had a doctor say to me, there's no stupid questions, Diane. And I'm here to tell you this today. There are no stupid questions when it comes to your ability and right to question authoritarian or authoritative figures. okay? And that means when your older parent is in a hospital setting, and you do have people who have more knowledge than you, medical background than you do, that are giving you directives, which I've worked with some incredible people, incredible physicians, incredible nursing staff. But at the same time, I always say to a client, you have every right to question them. And if they truly are great professionals, they will welcome those questions.
Right. That
Because
makes sense.
that's the difference between authoritarian and authoritative. An authoritarian professional says to you, it's this way, it's my way or the highway. That isn't that is the person you want to
Well, then
question
you have
the most.
to ask, is that in the best interest
Interest
of
of
your
my
parent?
That's right. That's
or
right.
your loved one, or is that in the best interest of
the doctor.
facility,
Yeah,
the doctor,
right.
etc.?
Exactly. And I think what we're seeing right now, again, tying in this last year and a half of our life, the big message has been that when authoritarian figures, be them politicians, be them hospital administrators, make a statement about something, that you're not to question it. And I'm here to tell you, as an advocate that believes in a person's right to question and think for themselves, I will always support you and say you have every right to question every professional as it pertains to the outcome of your parent or yourself. That's what knowing your rights are, and anyone who tells you different is flat out wrong, and they do not have the best interest at heart of your parent or yourself.
There's a whole lot of cover your ass going on.
Right, right.
And bottom line, you want to be able to have the best information available to you
Right.
in order for you to feel good about the decision that you're making, either as a partner with your parent, or if you are in a situation where you have to kind of take the reins because cognitively they're not able to do that for themselves. You owe it to yourself and to that loved one to
Right.
make sure you've got the very best information, the most current information. You know what your rights are, the patient rights are, all of those kinds of things, so that you can in turn make that
Right.
best decision. And that's what a patient advocate.
And that's what I do as a senior advocate
Right.
and a patient advocate. And a lot of times what I also do is I will refer people off. So if there is a situation, and I'll take Medicaid as a prime example. I used to do applications. I don't do them anymore. But I will refer someone off to someone who does do them and does them consistently, and will be able to follow up in a way that gets a timely submittal of that application. I'll refer off to elder care attorneys for someone that needs to get POA on financial and POA on medical, that type of case.
What's
That's
POA?
power of attorney.
Oh, okay.
Power of attorney.
So basically, you have a level of expertise on all of these things that's available for other people to tap into, because
Right, to
there's
steer
a
them
heck
in a
of a lot of
direction.
stuff I don't know about any of this.
Right, to steer them into directions
To
that
get
they
them to
need.
the right knowledge and the right information to go where they gotta go.
And that's
awesome.
it. And
That's
that's it. And on that note, I hope we have on some level answered those questions, given you tidbits of info that you didn't have. I will make sure that my website is
In the description
in the
box
description.
below.
If you have a need or a question or
Like,
you want to
share,
call and hire me,
subscribe.
by all means, please do. And I think from that point forward, we're going to be doing some interesting things, hopefully coming up in a different format, but we'll talk about that.
And the interesting thing about all of this is, again, it goes back to the things we've talked about previously, because wherever you go, there you are. So the more self-aware, the more powerful you feel into yourself, and the less validation you're looking for outside of yourself, the better quality of yourself you're bringing to any situation. And this is a big one. And I would love it if you would continue to share the wisdom that you've gleaned on these, tricks of the trade, if you will, things that you've figured out. For those of you that are in this capacity of caring for a loved one, please, I pray that you're taking care of yourself as well,
First, right.
and not forgetting about you.
Right.
And again, the outcome of all of this is to, at the end of the day, be able to live our life and look at ourselves in the mirror and have no regrets because we've done the very, very best we
can.
know how.
And as Nancy and I always say, our key line, tap
Into
your badass.
badass.
Bye, guys.
See you next time.